Okay, so you want to own a McDonald's. You buy a couple of golden arches, hire a few teenagers to flip burgers, sit back, and watch an endless stream of drive-through cash flood your bank account every single day. It sounds like the ultimate passive income machine, right? Well, McDonald's isn't just a fast food chain. It is a global culinary monolith generating over $25 billion in total system-wide revenues across more than 40,000 locations worldwide. In the United States alone, the average McDonald's store pulls in a staggering $3.5 million in gross sales every single year. That means a single average-sized fast food restaurant on a busy suburban corner generates more annual revenue than a medium-sized law firm, a boutique hotel, or a high-end medical clinic. But here is the catch that trips up almost every single aspiring franchisee. McDonald's Corporation is not actually in the business of selling hamburgers. They are in the business of owning premium real estate and extracting long-term rent and royalties from you, the owner. In fact, while the individual store owner is grinding out 70-hour work weeks managing food waste, employee turnover, and customer complaints to clear a modest 8 to 10% net margin, McDonald's corporate enjoys operating margins hovering around 45 to 50%. Primarily because they collect guaranteed rent checks whether you sell a million Big Macs or zero. Understand this underlying real estate extraction engine, and you understand the fast food franchising business. Miss it, and you'll go bankrupt owning one of the most famous, highly respected, and cash-generative brands in human history. To understand why this opportunity exists and why people fight so hard to buy into it, you have to zoom out to the broader fast food industry in 2026. The global quick-service restaurant market is currently valued at well over $900 billion, driven by a culture that demands extreme convenience, high-speed execution, and predictable quality. You might think the primary driver of fast food demand is simply hunger or low prices, but the real driver is time poverty. In a world where multi-earner households work longer hours and commuting times remain stretched, paying $9 for a meal delivered to your car window in under 3 minutes is no longer a luxury. It's a fundamental daily utility. That is why fast food demand is remarkably durable. During economic recessions, consumers trade down from casual dining, sit-down restaurants to fast food drive-thrus. During inflationary periods, fast food remains the floor for commercial meal preparation. The demand isn't going away. If anything, the shift toward mobile ordering, third-party delivery apps, and automated drive-through lanes has made fast food locations more embedded in daily life than ever before. However, before you go applying to buy a store, you need to understand that not all fast food franchises are built the same. And even within the McDonald's ecosystem, there are distinct operational models. First, you have the classic single-unit traditional location, a standalone building on a high-visibility corner with a dual-lane drive-thru. These stores generate the highest gross revenues, often pushing $3.5 million to $4.5 million annually, but they carry the highest capital entry requirements and massive overhead. Second, you have non-traditional locations. Stores embedded inside airports, military bases, hospitals, or toll road service plazas. These units operate on much smaller footprints, have limited menus, and trade massive drive-through volume for captive foot traffic, yielding lower gross sales around $1.5 million to $2 million, but with vastly reduced real estate footprints and lower maintenance costs. Third, you have multi-unit franchise portfolios. This is where real wealth is generated in the system. The single-store owner-operator might net $200,000 to $300,000 a year in personal income, but the operator running a cluster of 8 to 15 stores controls an enterprise generating $30 million to $50 million in top-line revenue, allowing them to build out a centralized management layer, lower their per-unit equipment costs, and clear multi-million-dollar annual net distributions. So what are the core mechanics of how a single store actually operates day to day? Stripped down to its simplest logic, the model works like this. You buy raw food ingredients and paper packaging from a mandatory corporate supply chain. You convert those raw materials into standardized menu items using specialized automated kitchen equipment. You sell those items at a precise price point controlled largely by market standards and corporate recommendations. and you collect the cash immediately before paying your expenses. But the single most important number, the operational lever that determines whether your store makes money or loses money, is your drive-thru throughput speed, specifically your average drive-thru stack time during peak meal windows. In the fast food business, drive-thru sales account for anywhere from 70 to 80% of total store revenue. During the peak lunch window from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., your store's physical capacity is fixed by the length of your drive-thru lane. Let's do the actual math live to see how this works. Suppose your average order value at the drive-thru is $12. If your kitchen crew and drive-thru attendants are moving slowly and averaging 180 seconds per car, you can process roughly 20 cars per hour per lane. Across 2 lanes over a 2-hour lunch rush, that is 80 cars, generating exactly $960 in revenue. Now, suppose you train your staff, streamline your assembly line, and deploy digital order-taking tablets in the line to drop that stack time down to 90 seconds per car. Suddenly, you double your throughput capacity to 40 cars per hour per lane. Across those same 2 hours, you process 160 cars, generating $1,920 in revenue. That is a $960 difference in just 2 hours of work. Why does this matter so much? Because your fixed costs, your store rent, property taxes, insurance, manager salaries, and electricity, do not change whether you process 80 cars or 160 cars during lunch. The marginal cost of serving those extra 80 cars is almost entirely limited to raw food and packaging ingredients, which run around 30% of sales. That means out of that additional $960 in revenue, roughly $672 drops directly down to your bottom line gross profit. In fast food, speed is not just a customer service metric. It is literally the mechanical engine that drives your operating margin. So what does it actually take to get into this business in 2026? This is where the fantasy collides head-on with cold, hard financial reality. McDonald's does not let just anyone buy a franchise, and their financial bar is one of the highest in the entire retail world. First, you need a minimum of $500,000 in non-borrowed, liquid personal assets. That means cash, stocks, bonds, or liquid investments sitting in your account. Not home equity, not retirement accounts you can easily access, and not money you plan to borrow from friends or a bank. Second, the total cost to open a single traditional new McDonald's location ranges from $1.8 million to $2.5 million. This includes the initial franchise fee of $45,000 paid directly to corporate, high-efficiency kitchen equipment, digital menu boards, point-of-sale systems, signage, decor packages, and initial opening inventory. And then there is the bureaucratic process. You don't just pick a spot in your hometown and build a store. McDonald's corporate real estate team selects the site, buys the land, constructs the building, and leases the finished store to you. You are buying the right to operate inside their building under a strict 20-year franchise agreement. Furthermore, you have to attend a rigorous training program at Hamburger University in Oak Brook, Illinois, along with 12 to 18 months of unpaid, full-time training inside an operational store, learning every single position from cleaning grease traps and frying hash browns to managing inventory systems and analyzing daily profit and loss statements. If you fail the training or display poor operational leadership during this trial period, corporate can drop you from the program and you walk away with zero guarantees. Let's walk through a complete, realistic startup budget for acquiring an existing, operating McDonald's franchise location, which is how over 80% of new franchisees actually enter the system, since new store builds are typically offered to existing, proven operators first. Suppose you are buying an established store doing $3.2 million in annual gross sales. The purchase price for the business equity and equipment will typically range between 1.5 to 2.5 times annual cash flow, or roughly $1.8 million. Here is how your initial capital deployment breaks down line by line. First, you pay the $45,000 initial franchise fee to McDonald's Corporation. Next, you acquire the existing store equipment, kitchen machinery, drive-thru technology, and interior decor packages from the selling franchisee, which will run around $1.2 million. You will need at least $50,000 in initial food, beverage, and paper product inventory to keep the store stocked for the first 2 weeks. Working capital is non-negotiable. You need at least $100,000 in cash reserves sitting in the store's operating bank account to cover payroll, emergency repairs, and cash drawer balances. Then come the legal, accounting, and closing costs, which will run around $30,000 to navigate corporate transfer agreements, entity setup, and franchise disclosure document reviews. Finally, you have insurance prepayments, local business licenses, health department permits, and utility deposits, adding another $25,000. All in, your upfront cash and debt requirement to take over this existing store lands at approximately $1.45 million to $1.8 million, requiring you to put down roughly $600,000 in unencumbered personal cash, with the remaining $1 million to $1.2 million funded through a small business administration or commercial franchise loan. Now, let's conduct a full revenue and profitability reality check on this $3.2 million gross revenue store once you are holding the keys. Where does all that money actually go? First, your cost of goods sold. The actual beef, chicken, potatoes, buns, soda syrup, paper bags, and plastic cups swallows roughly 30% of your total revenue, taking $960,000 right off the top. Second, labor costs, including hourly crew wages, shift managers, store general manager salaries, payroll taxes, and workers' compensation insurance, will consume another 28 to 30% of sales, accounting for roughly $928,000. In 2026, with minimum wage laws in states like California and New York pushing fast food wages to $20 an hour or higher, managing hourly labor schedules with extreme precision is the difference between surviving and drowning. Third, you have corporate fees. McDonald's corporate takes a mandatory 4% service fee on gross sales, which equals $128,000. You also pay a mandatory 4% marketing fee into the National Advertising Fund, taking another $128,000. This is the money that pays for national television commercials, global sports sponsorships, and digital app promotions. Fourth, you have to pay rent to your landlord, which, as we established, is McDonald's corporate itself. Real estate lease fees are typically calculated as a percentage of gross sales, usually ranging between 10% and 15% depending on the site's historical performance and development costs. On a $3.2 million store at a 12% rent agreement, you pay $384,000 annually in base rent directly back to corporate. Fifth, you have store-level operating expenses. Electricity and gas utilities run around $60,000 a year. Point of sale and credit card processing fees take around $50,000. Repair and maintenance on specialized kitchen fryers, ice cream machines, and drive-thru headsets consumes $45,000. Property insurance and liability coverage takes $25,000. And local business taxes, accounting, and administrative overhead take another $30,000. Total operating expenses equal roughly $210,000. When you add up all those expenses, $960,000 in food, $928,000 in labor, $256,000 in corporate fees, $384,000 in rent, and $210,000 in store overhead. Your total operating cost to run the store comes to $2,738,000. Subtract that from your $3,200, $000 in gross revenue, and your store generates an EBITDA, or store-level operating cash flow, of $462,000 annually, representing an operating margin of roughly 14.4%. So you get to pocket $462,000 a year, right? Not so fast. Remember that $1.2 million commercial bank loan you took out to purchase the store equipment and business assets? A standard 10-year commercial loan at current interest rates will require roughly $160,000 to $180,000 a year in principal and interest debt service payments. After paying your bank loan, your actual net pre-tax income as the store owner comes out to roughly $280,000 to $300,000 a year. Now, $280,000 a year in personal income is certainly a fantastic living for an independent business owner. But compare that to McDonald's Corporation itself. While you are dealing with broken ice cream machines, managing 50 hourly employees, dealing with local health inspections, and paying off a $1.2 million bank loan to make $280,000, McDonald's corporate collected $128,000 in royalties, $128,000 in advertising fees, and $384,000 in guaranteed rent from your store alone, totaling $640,000 in near-pure margin cash flow extracted from your single location, without having to schedule a single hourly employee or fry a single batch of French fries. So the question that should be sitting in the back of your mind right now is this: what are the risk factors that can wreck this profitability and turn that $280,000 profit into a net loss? The biggest threat in 2026 is labor inflation and crew retention. Fast food restaurants experience annual employee turnover rates exceeding 100%. That means if your store employs 50 hourly workers, you are hiring, onboarding, uniforming, and training 50 new people every single year. When minimum wage laws rise rapidly without an immediate ability to raise menu prices without scaring away value-conscious customers, your labor percentage can quickly creep from 28% up to 34%. On a $3.2 million store, a 5% increase in labor costs wipes out $160,000 of your profit, cutting your personal income in half overnight. Second, you have corporate-mandated capital rebuilds, known in the system as reimages. Every 7 to 10 years, McDonald's corporate requires franchisees to remodel their store interiors and exteriors to match current corporate brand guidelines, adding modern digital kiosks, redesigned drive-thru lanes, or upgraded kitchen technology. These remodels can cost anywhere from $300,000 to over $800,000 per location. While corporate sometimes co-funds a percentage of the build-out, the franchisee is responsible for funding the majority of the capital expenditure, forcing you to take on additional bank debt that eats into your monthly cash flow. Third, you have customer preference shifts and local competition. While McDonald's is a massive brand, independent operators are constantly competing against local fast casual chains, regional burger outlets, and rising delivery-only ghost kitchens that can undercut pricing or offer higher perceived product quality. If your store's annual gross sales drop by just 10% from $3.2 million down to $2.88 million, your fixed costs stay almost completely flat. That $320,000 drop in top-line sales can wipe out almost your entire net personal income, bringing your net profit down to near zero. So, what is the final verdict? Should you actually buy a McDonald's franchise? The answer depends entirely on who you are and what you want out of entrepreneurship. If you are an investor looking for creative freedom, product innovation, or an easy passive income stream where you drop cash into a store and play golf 5 days a week, you should stay far, far away from this business. McDonald's is not a corporate sandbox for creative entrepreneurs. You cannot change the menu. You cannot alter the supply chain. You cannot modify the store design. And corporate field operations managers will inspect your store regularly to score you on cleanliness, speed, and brand compliance. If you fail to maintain standards, corporate can terminate your franchise agreement. However, if you are an operationally disciplined, process-oriented manager with substantial liquid capital who wants one of the safest, most reliable, and proven business models in human history, buying a McDonald's franchise is arguably the gold standard of franchising. You are buying into a bulletproof supply chain, world-class national marketing, and an iconic global brand that draws cash-paying customers to your location every hour of the day. At the end of the day, owning a McDonald's is not about building a fast food empire from scratch. It is about buying a high-yield operational job where you execute someone else's playbook with extreme precision. Always remember, you are not selling hamburgers to build an empire. You are managing an operational engine inside a massive real estate machine designed to pay corporate first, pay the bank second, and pay you what's left over. Understand that real estate extraction mechanic, manage your labor and drive-through speed with relentless discipline, and you can build a stable, multi-generational family fortune behind the golden arches.